Welcome to an exciting edition of Token Topics. A victory for Ripple. What an exciting day for Ripple and XRP fans. The SEC has surrendered. They're dropping it. They're walking away, which means a victory for Ripple. This is exciting news. We're going to dive into an exciting article. Also, we're going to hear from Jeremy Hogan and John Deaton. So you're definitely not going to want to miss this. Now, when I play the recording, you're going to hear some background noise. Be patient, it does pass. I did not want to edit and clip that out. I want everybody to hear this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. This is a great day for XRP holders and Ripple fans. We're going to listen to John Dean and others so we get a better understanding on this surrender and what is actually going on. But this is a complete victory. And a landmark SEC surrender, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse and Executive Chairman Chris Larsen are cleared of all baseless allegations. This victory is the third consecutive triumph for Garlinghouse, Larsen, and Ripple, coming on the heels of the July 2023 ruling that declared XRP is not in and of itself a security, and a subsequent October decision to deny the SEC's request for an interlocutory appeal. So this is definitely great news. Now let's go ahead and get a better idea of what's going on.
Let's make it clear. It was strictly a bullying tactic, intimidating tactic. If you go back to the original discovery disputes, even though the SEC had every XRP transaction made by these two executives and Ripple from the beginning of time, 2012, every single transaction, they wanted their credit card receipts, they wanted all their bank statements. Long time ago, and Judge Netburn quashed that and shut it down. But that's what they were doing. It was all about making these two executives' lives uncomfortable, intimidating them, seeking hundreds of millions of dollars from them to force a settlement. And to their credit, they didn't fall for it. But it raised the burden. They had to prove recklessness, that XRP was so clear to be a security that these two executives were reckless in helping Ripple make institutional sales or those sales. And so when you don't have, the motive isn't based on the law, and the motive isn't to enforce U.S. securities laws, but it's for ill-conceived motives, it's going to be a mistake. And it proved to be a mistake. And a few weeks ago on crypto law, I said that this case is never going to go. It would put Bill Hinman as a witness potentially. They were never going to win the case. And so I said, they're either going to go to Ripple and say, hey, we'll drop the charges and they'll negotiate a settlement. And if they can't do that because Ripple says, no, we're not paying that much, then they would dismiss the case with prejudice. And so before we go and answer more questions about like what's the next phase and what's going to happen, let's get first Jeremy and then Bill or someone else's take on it as well.
Yeah, let's absolutely do that. But just to explain for anyone who's coming on the show and doesn't actually know what just went down, this case, the SEC case against Garlinghouse and against Larsen, has been dropped by the SEC. Is that fair to say? Because this was not, and it was very clearly stated by Stuart Alderodi within the last hour, this was not a settlement. There was no settlement reached. This case was actually dismissed.
No, it's a complete turnaround from the SEC. It's dismissed with prejudice. And there was a question out there that said, what's that mean with prejudice against the defendants? That means that the SEC cannot bring these charges against Brad Garlinghouse or Chris Larsen again. And that's what it means. So the parties agreed that this case forever would be thrown out and dismissed voluntarily by the SEC. So it is them accepting the fact that, Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larsen said, bring me my jury, bring me the trial, let's get it on. And the SEC said, no, thank you. We're going to concede that we don't have a shot in hell. Now, some will say that the SEC doing this so maybe they could get to an appeal on the to the Second Circuit faster because the interlocutory appeal was denied. But what's going to happen is the next stage is going to be more litigation. It's going to be the penalty stage. And Ripple, for example, has $770 million judgment against them for institutional sales. You're going to see them argue to Judge Torres two things. One, that that's not profit, and therefore legitimate business expenses must get reduced off that figure. They're also going to argue, and they can make the argument, that ODL transactions still should be exempt from the ruling, almost a way of getting her to modify the earlier decision to not include ODL cells. And they can argue that in the penalty phase. And so I'm confident that they're going to get the 770 down. The question is it going to be cut in half? Is it going to be cut more than half? But let's hear from others.
So, Jeremy, you just made a post not long ago talking about how emotionally taxing it is for someone to be sued by the government. And I want to know, how do you think Garlinghouse and Larson are
This is
are
Jeremy
feeling
Hogan
right
now.
And also, what are your thoughts on the implications of this ruling?
This is Jeremy Hogan.
There's no other feeling like it in the world other than having a child is getting dropped from a lawsuit. I'm sure they're ecstatic right now. The thing that surprised me is that they just dismissed the case and that this wasn't a settlement. Absolutely a shocker for me. That never happens. I don't know how it played out, but I assume, and with the SEC, it's hard to know because they don't act like a regular litigant. But I assume that the SEC went to the individual defendants and said, hey, we want to make this go away. What can we do? And so I'm assuming if that was what was proffered, Brad and Chris said, you can, take it and shove it, and we'll see you at trial. And that's what led to this dismissal. So I think the SEC, one, overplayed its cards with how they charged this case. And I think they underestimated the resolve that Brad and Chris had. And also, I just think they underestimated how weak their case was going to turn out being. I mean, just the fact that up until 2018, employees of the SEC or employees at the SEC could actually trade XRP. And now you're saying that the two executives of the company that were doing the exact same things that SEC attorneys were doing were somehow intentionally breaking the law is just ridiculous. And, that was going to all come out at trial. So, I think they're feeling great. And I think that the SEC, realizes it made a mistake. Also, remember, what does this do now when Chair Gensler comes out and says, well, it's all clear, there's no question as to the law about what's a security, what's not a security. And then, it comes down to proving that the court, SEC backs off and dismisses the case.
How awesome is that? Okay. Going back to this article. Today, we are legally vindicated and personally redeemed in our battle against a troubling attempt to abuse the rules in order to advance a political agenda to suffocate crypto in America. It is a travesty that we were forced to defend ourselves from an ill-advised attack that was flawed from the day it was filed, said Executive Chairman Chris Larson. While justice ultimately prevailed, the government's actions that led to this point raise questions about the origin and motivation of this lawsuit. It is an abuse by administrative state that politically connected special interests that clear and even proven conflicts of interest were able to drag out our names through the mud in an attempt to ruin us personally and destroy a company so many have worked so hard for so long to build, including a lot of fans that are rooting for this company.
Because Ripple's the chosen one to lead the new global digital payment system, and they use XRP. In 2013, the Federal Reserve began looking for faster payments options. 2 years later, an action plan was born and a federal payments task force was created. It included one company focused on crypto, Ripple. In 2014, the World Bank and Better Than Cash Alliance, which includes the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative, and the governments of 32 countries, put out a report called The Opportunities of Digitizing Payments. 1 year later, the Better Than Cash Alliance featured one crypto company on their website, Ripple. Today, Better Than Cash Alliance and all other UN initiatives are focused on a single agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. You can see the SDGs logo on Bill Gates' lapel, world-leading companies, the Better Than Cash Alliance website, and on the UN's official exchange, Exchange. What crypto is Exchange officially utilizing for their carbon credit solution? XRP. The world will move to a new international standard for exchanging electronic messages between financial institutions by 2025 called ISO 20022. Who was the first ISO 20022 member focused on distributed ledger technology? Ripple. Who's partnered with over 300 financial institutions, including Bank of America, American Express, PNC, Santander, SBI, HSBC, Standard Chartered Bank, Bank of England, India, Singapore, Scotland, Australia, and Indonesia, the largest banks in Japan, Canada, Egypt, the Middle East, United Arab Emirates, Thailand, Morocco, Bhutan, South Korea, Brazil, and Latin America? Ripple. Who is a former employee overseeing the Federal Reserve? Ripple. A former employee overseeing the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock's digital asset division? Ripple. Leading Australia's CBDC effort? Ripple. Who hired a former Treasury of the United States? Ripple. 2 former Federal Reserve attorneys to their board? Ripple. 2 former Clinton and Obama advisors? Former Minister of Defense and Economics of Germany? Former business director at SWIFT? Former SWIFT board member? Former CFO of PayPal? Former head of the DTCC? Former chief business officer at Uber? Former VP of Amazon and former SEC chair on their legal team? Ripple. Who's a member of the Digital Pound Foundation, Digital Dollar Project, Digital Euro Association, Mojaloop, IMF's high-level advisory board on fintech, Hyperledger Blockchain Consortium, Open Payments Coalition, Faster Payments Council, Global Payments Steering Group, Cross-Border Working Group, International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications, Crypto Climate Accord, University Blockchain Initiative, World Wide Web Consortium, and a featured partner of the World Economic Forum with 3 members of their team directly listed on the WF website?